I'm short. So my name is Christy Marsden. I work with the University of Minnesota Extension. I am a horticulture educator and the manager for the education of the Master Gardener program. Prior to that, I did work in Wisconsin. I was a county-based horticulture educator in Rock County, so I got to work closely with Mike. And so I took over when he left, and it was a mess. And it probably still is a mess because then I left. So there you are. But I'm here today to talk about some of the work that I've been doing and what we've been doing. First, did everybody get a paper on there? About a year and a half. Everybody was gone, so I had to guess. If you weren't there, I have like 2 left, and you can raise your hand. Yeah, we'll share it online too as soon as I get the PDF to give to Mike. Okay, so I'm going to talk about community engagement toolkits using the Horticulture Continuum of Learning, which is kind of an effort that we've been doing in Minnesota to kind of shift the way that our Master Gardeners work within their communities. So the first thing that we've done as, well, not the first thing, but one of the things that I really like that we've done as a program is we created these priorities. And so the priorities of the Master Gardener program came from the Master Gardeners themselves. How do we get Master Gardeners to engage in their communities? We figure out what's important to Master Gardeners and then the people they serve, because they know better than anybody else what their communities need. So we created these priorities to base all of our programming to support their work beyond these main ideas. And you'll get a copy of this later with some of the material that Jackie's passing out. But they're basic things like horticulture skills, but then local foods as well. Climate change, nearby nature, pollinators, plant biodiversity, and clean water. They're kind of big ideas, but these were the main things that our Master Gardener said, hey, this is important for us and the work that we do. So instead of coming from top down, this is what we think you need, this is them saying, this is what we need, and we get to make it happen for them, which is really exciting. So if we know the priorities, the next question is, well, how do we do a community engagement? It's a really nice word, but it means a lot of things and nothing at the same time. So when we think about a community engagement, we think about, well, meeting the people where they are and the community members where they are. So this means getting your fingers and your hands dirty and pulling weeds and cutting up vegetables and being where the kids are and really knowing what your community needs and then being able to provide those materials for the community based on those needs. And so the idea of this is the kind of stuff that Google can't do, right? Like Google, you can go online and you can figure out what's eating your plant and then what to do about it, but you can't have Google come and serve kids vegetables out of the garden that they grew together and learn about it. Not yet anyway, but I hope Google can't get there. So how do we meet people how do we help engage people? We meet them where they are. And one of the other tools that we've created is the Horticulture Continuum of Learning to kind of help us create materials that help engage the community through Master Gardener volunteers. The way this works, and I gave you all a copy because this is probably really tiny words that you can't read, but the way that it works is there's 3 main levels of previous knowledge that learners come into. So basically, we catch learners wherever they are in their paths of learning about horticulture, right? So they might not know that trees and bushes are different things, or they may know that and they have a pretty good knowledge. We don't know, but we know that everybody's different. And it's not to say one's worse than the other, it's just we have to meet them where they are. So where they enter, and then in the middle of the box is different ways that people learn. So somebody really beginning who maybe doesn't have a lot of awareness about horticulture and what horticulture is, maybe we can start by building some awareness. As you move forward, growing interest, developing that, and then I kind of like to think of it as like we're dragging them deeper and deeper into the like horticultural, well, we're all here, but it's like the excitement of world of horticulture. We get to pull them in slowly and slowly through all of this different level of knowledge. And so you can see in the bottom, the content deepens and the learner's time investment also increases along the continuum. So we get them in with awareness and then we pull them in, growing interest in digging deeper. So the way that we applied this in our county, or not county, state, is we've created community engagement toolkits. And so this works in a lot of different ways, but we created a slew of materials, which I'll kind of go over some examples of what they are and how they fit in the continuum. But we've created these materials and we've packaged them up as community engagement toolkits. We've provided them to the Master Gardeners online. This is a Google site we created, and we packaged the materials in the ways that volunteers most often use educational materials. So you'll see teach a class. So there's teaching packages with stuff to help master gardeners teach classes, which they often do. There's planting, so having gardens, demonstration gardens, and materials to support that. And then there's setting up a table for tabling at fairs or providing information that way. And so we created the materials using the continuum and kind of put them in a friendly play, like in a friendly way that master gardeners are more familiar with. Because if we just threw the continuum at it and we're like, hey, build awareness with buttons, they'd be like, what? I like buttons though, sure. So now all of a sudden, if you have setup table and you have those that information there. And then the other component, and one of the more important pieces of this toolkit, is that these toolkits came in regional educational gatherings or trainings throughout the state. So we did, I think, 7 workshops last year, and over 380 master gardeners came to those. And what those were is you got about 2 to 3 hours of really in-depth information on flowers for pollinators. What is pollination? What are the pollinators? How do we build landscapes that are friendly for pollinators? That really in-depth information with the idea that master gardeners could get lots and lots and learn and feel really satisfied with that, and then be able to share that information through the materials that we've provided. And another huge component of that workshop was also teaching them how to use the materials and exposing them to all the different materials that they had. Master gardeners in Minnesota are only allowed to use these materials if they've come to those trainings, because the idea is we want to start providing information on how to use these materials and how to engage the community in these different ways. So instead of saying, hey, here's a new PowerPoint, have fun, instead you go to this workshop and you learn, oh, hey, here's a different way of teaching this class, or here's a different way of working with my community. So we, actively work on, oh, hey, what are these tools? What are your community needs, and how can we make those happen? So some of the examples of the tools we created. So this is awareness. So this is really early on the continuum, if you see that. This is for people who don't have a lot of prior knowledge. So when we think about flowers for pollinators, this is really basic stuff. Maybe people don't know that flowers feed pollinators. Maybe they don't know that a flower in their front yard actually will feed pollinators. And this seems like a really simple thing for all of us and probably a lot of the master gardeners we teach. But if we think about it from the perspective of the people that the master gardeners are reaching, maybe they don't know it. So that's all they need to know to say, oh, I can plant a zinnia in my front yard and I might get some butterflies there. That's cool. And then you've made an in, right? Because that person's probably not going to your to the library class to learn about pollinators because they don't know, right? But if you get them here, maybe eventually they'll get there, but you got to get them where they are. Another example is we have 2 different kinds of interpretive signage. So the first one is just a simple pollinator cafe. Somebody can get the sign and put it in their front yard where they have flowers that feed pollinators. The next one is just a whole set of interpretive signage that we made. Each county that goes to a program or one of the trainings gets a set of these so they can have their own garden in their county and then have this interpretive signage. So this one's on being a pollinator watcher. And the idea here is if you plant pollinator gardens, look to see if the pollinators come, because that helps build awareness that if you have pollinator gardens, they'll bring pollinators, and it actually works. There's about 5 different signs, all with really easy to understand messaging about pollinators. The idea here is we don't want them to, like with this awareness building, they're not going to go home and all of a sudden tear up their yard and plant a prairie or something, but they're going to take that first step towards understanding how they can impact pollinators and plant flowers for pollinators. The next is growing interest, and so this would be a little further along the continuum, and the idea here is we've created materials for people who maybe know what pollinators are. They know that they want to plant flowers for pollinators, but they don't know how. And so there's a few different materials we created for this. There's a brochure with really great information on how you can transform your landscape in big and small ways to help. There's conduct a fridge survey and a bunch of other activities that really get people to think about how their world is impacted by pollinators and how they can impact their pollinators through their landscaping or even just their eating habits. And then this is an example of one of the PowerPoint presentations that was given to master gardeners so they can teach about flowers for pollinators in their community. And so the idea here is this is where you're going to get people who kind of already know a little bit and then be able to give them information so they can even further have potentially like change their behavior and create more pollinator habitat or something of that nature. And then the next movement along is the digging deeper. And so the digging deeper, I like to think about it in terms of master gardeners. And these are people who really, really are into it, so much so that they're going to teach other people about it. And so for us, we have a conference every year where we can bring in experts to talk about these various aspects. We had a webinar. So this is two of our not educators, faculty at the university talking about this is very specific. It's like grasses and how grass can work in a pollinator habitat, which is super fascinating. And so they were able to teach master gardeners about this, and it tells them to, it like allows you to dig in a little bit deeper. And so that's an example of that. That's not something that master gardeners would teach the community, but it's something that we can do to support their further learning. So if you look along the continuum, it's not only for the people that master gardeners themselves are reaching, but it's also for master gardeners as well, and however we're providing as a team education across the state. Now, one of the things is well, how do we make this happen? Because that's a lot of materials. And we have, if you flip over your sheet, you also get a copy of this one. So this is, it has a lot of different names. I think it's the learning development team right now. I call it the circly thing because that's how I remember it. But this is our work team, or our team that we create that we have, and this is how we work as a team to create these learning materials, right? So first of all, it's all focused on the learning outcomes. So what we'll do is we'll take that continuum of learning and then put these side by side. And so if the learning outcome is, we just want to build awareness that you can plant flowers for pollinators and that has an impact, well, now we know, okay, if that's the learning outcome, then we can think about the intended audience, who that's meant for, and then we can build a team that helps create materials around that particular topic or that particular learning outcome. So we have topic experts. These are the people at the university who really know. And then we have education format experts. These are the people who know how to get the message that the topic experts have, and that we want the intended audience happen. So all the interpretive signage, we have an that we're able to, because her like those messages, right? So that people can buy and understand what we're saying, because I don't know a lot of words, because I want everybody to have like everything, because I talk a lot, I'm teaching people, but somebody else can say, hey, maybe we can use easier to understand. So that's where that education format expert can come in. This team can shift anywhere we are, continue working with master gardeners. If we're digging in deeper, the team in terms of the topic experts, because we can get a lot. So all of these. The results, so this last year, we did the Flowers for Pollinators. We had over 380 master gardeners across the state trained. It happened towards the end of fall, so we're still, so the training season for that started this year, or education season. And so we're just starting, like we're getting that information back, and my colleague Jackie collects a lot of it. Last night we were talking about it a little bit, and these are pictures of the interpretive signage out in their demonstration gardens, doing activities with kids. And what I was reading through the spreadsheet of the stuff that people have been coming in, and it's really great because yes, there's classes at the library here and there's people having booths there, but it's starting to become really more creative and reaching in different ways. So I know one of our counties, they labeled all of their plants as pollinator friendly, and they had a class at the same time that they had their plant sale. So if you didn't know what that meant, or you wanted to learn exactly how to do it, you could go to the class or talk to them. They had little like bee stickers on their name tags, so you could like talk to me about pollinators, which was great. One of my favorite activities that I saw, and I couldn't share pictures with it, but I really wanted to, is one of the counties, they took these flowers, or they drew flowers and they laminated it, and then they put little cups in the middle of each flower, and they put Cheeto puffballs in the cups. And then they made these little bees, and you stuck your fingers through the bees because it was the bee legs. And then they had the kids pick up the Cheeto puffballs, eat them, not lick their fingers, and then go to a different flower where the cup was cotton balls, and then play with the cotton balls. And in that way, they learned about what cross-pollination was. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so smart. And it's just really cool because the more that my team can empower master gardeners to think outside of the box and do these different things, the way better it is for all of us. Because I didn't come up with that idea, but I think it's a brilliant idea, and I want to ask them to tell me about that idea so that I can put it on that Google site so that other people can do similar things like that. We work as a team really well by hearing what our county and what our master gardeners need and being able to put it on the site and really support it. And I love that we can really encourage like thinking outside of the box and doing things differently and really getting people engaged. So that's, I talk fast. That was 10 minutes. See, Jackie, I didn't take your time. No questions? We'll wait till the end? Yeah, wait till the end. Okay, thank you. Is Jackie next?